mountain pose. So it's a hybrid yoga-inspired strength and cardio session, just to change things up, move things around, and build a little more strength and resilience, but have fun with it. And if there's ever a time where you're feeling like you don't need to push yourself as far as I'm pushing, just modify. Come into child's pose, stop, go slower, whatever feels right. It's Sunday. Every day we want to apply the same principle, but especially on a Sunday when we might need a little more restoration and calm and balance. So I trust you will do what you need. We'll start in standing pose, bringing our feet under our hips, our shoulders stacked on top of the hips, and we'll take a few deep breaths in through the nose and release through the mouth. Slowing the breath, noticing the expansion of the rib cage laterally, and the softening of the muscles in our faces, our jaws, and our shoulders. Allowing the breath to assume its natural rhythm in and out through the nose. And running through a body scan from head to toe, noticing the energy and the mood of the body. Noticing areas of comfort, lightness, and strength. Perhaps reflecting on highlights of the past week. Things that come to mind, successes, challenges, accomplishments. And perhaps taking a final moment to set an intention for today's practice. Breathing in curiosity and freshness, and releasing any expectation or competition. Bringing our awareness back to the space around us, the sounds, the smells, and the temperature. And we'll blink our eyes open, shifting our feet out slightly, and we'll flow through our squat sequence. Inhaling, reaching the arms up over our heads, palms together. Exhale, we sink into our Malasana squat. Inhale, we hinge forward into forward fold. And exhaling, we round up like ragdolls. And we'll repeat this. Warming into our breath and our body. Flowing to whatever speed feels good. And starting to add range of motion as the body warms up. Noticing the sensations in our bodies. And we'll do 2 more. Moving with purpose and intention. Inhaling, we reach all the way up, palms together. Exhale, hands to heart center. Stepping our feet wider, about double hip width. When you get there, no rush. Toes will point outwards. We're going to float our way into a goddess squat. Checking in with our posture here, drawing the knees back, engaging the inner thighs and the glutes. Keeping our knees stacked over our ankles, the toes are light. Hips are tucked under, and the shoulders are stacked on top. And we'll come into some straight legs, up on our toes and back into our squat. So coming up on the toes, straightening the legs, engaging the calves and the quadriceps and glutes, and then coming back down into our squat. Checking in with our posture, noticing our body's inclination to hinge forward. Going with the path of least resistance. And we tuck those hips back under, keeping our shoulders stacked on top. Really activating the quads, the glutes, and the calf muscles, finding somewhere to gaze at. Pausing at the top, squeezing the muscles. Dynamic tension through the whole body. Finding our rhythm, working on our stability. Creating a little headspace here. Three more. Last one. And we're going to do some hand taps in between, coming up, crossing our feet back into a squat, tapping down, coming up, crossing our feet, adding a little bit of a hop in between, adding some dynamic movements. Once again, finding what works for us today, our speed. Perhaps we don't hop. Squeezing the glutes at the top, working the quads as we lower down for 3, for 2, last one, and we're back into our goddess squat. Shaking that out in between, we'll do 2 more rounds just like that. So back into our goddess squat, finding our posture. Shoulders are stacked on top of the hips. Knees are stacked over the ankles. And when you're ready, we come all the way back up onto the toes, activating the glutes, the quads, and the calf muscles. Finding somewhere to gaze at. Keeping the hips tucked under. Starting to feel a warming in the legs. Three more, keeping that torso tall. Last one. And then we'll add our dynamic movement. Tapping the hand down, crisscrossing the feet as desired. Hinging into the hips. Sticking the booty out. 2 more. And we'll shake it out. Woo! Good work, yogis. Last round. Finding our way down into our goddess squat. Everyone's getting their AC on. Good. When you're ready, float on down. Once again, rolling the shoulders back. Palms are together. Knees are stacked over the ankles, hips are tucked under. Toes are pointed out. When we're ready, we come all the way up on our toes. And then we sink back down, goddess squat. Maybe sinking a little bit lower each time. Option to speed up the motion. This is our practice. We do what works for us. Three more. Good, squeezing at the top. I love that pause. Good, and then we do our hand taps and crisscross feet. Sinking into the hips, sticking the booty out. Gentle landing. Just think of how good this will feel when we're done. For 2. Last one. Good job. Woo, shaking that out. We'll come back into our goddess squat one more time. And we'll shift our weight left to right, pressing into the inner thigh, lowering the shoulder in the center, shifting sides with each breath. Slowly starting to reset the breath. Pressing the inner thigh away. Inhale, we stand back up onto our torso, bringing it back up. Pressing and shifting the weight. Good. 3 more. 2. Good breath work. Through the nose, activating the ujjayi. And we'll stay in our wide goddess squat position. And we'll do some side-to-side skandasanas. So starting high, left to right. And then as we warm through, we can start to come down a little bit lower, lifting the toes. Whatever speed feels comfortable. Keeping a bit of the momentum and the warmth going. Pushing only as far as we can within our stability range. Targeting the booty, the inner thighs. Speeding up as feels comfortable. Three. 2 more on each side. And then we'll hold, holding. We're not letting our hands come down. We're holding strong here. Hold. And we'll shift over to the other side, holding. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on back to the center, hinging forward. Pressing the legs, straightening them, letting the head hang heavy. Toes are pointed forward. Resetting. Noticing the energy running through our bodies. And with smiles on our faces, we'll come all the way down onto our side. And we'll do some side body work. Grabbing a sip of water in between as desired. We'll bring our elbow under our shoulder. We have the option to crunch or straight legs. So bringing our legs out to start. We have the option to bring our feet up and tap, or the option to bring our elbow into our knees. So we'll do this a few times, trying out what feels best for our body. Big reach of the arm. Inhale, exhale, crunch. Three, for two, and last one. Good job. Let's come a little bit lower, bringing our back leg to 90 degrees. Our hand can support our head. Our foot is going to be turned outwards so that the toes are pointing me. And we're going to lift the lower leg, working the inside of the thigh. Keeping that foot rotated so the inside of the foot is facing the sky. Good, releasing that. We're going to rotate a little bit more, bringing that top leg to 90 degrees. And the back leg, once again, is going to lift and lower, lift and lower. Supporting with our front hand. Noticing any singing sensations in that inner thigh. Keeping the foot rotated. Good. 3 more. 2 and 1. And we're going to roll in circles that lower leg. Circling in one direction. Keeping the leg as straight as possible. And we'll switch directions. They're counterintuitive. 2 more. Excellent. And we'll switch sides. Starting back at the top. Rolling over. Back with our elbow underneath our shoulder. We'll straighten the legs to start. We have the option with our hand at our head and we crunch in. Or we have the option to reach and bring our legs and our hands into a V. We're working the obliques. The side body is our focus. Inhale, we reach. Exhale, we crunch. For 2. And last one. Good job. Back leg comes to 90. We can lower down closer to the floor. And the lower leg is going to come up and down. Keeping that foot open, the toes are pointing forward. Working the inner thigh. Three more. Good. And we'll bring the leg to 90 degrees in front of us. Once again, keeping that back foot with the toes forward facing, lifting and lowering. Maybe we pulse at the top and we don't tap all the way down. Good, holding at the top, and we'll circle. Keeping the leg nice and straight. And circling in the other direction. Good job. Oh, we'll roll onto our fronts. Extending our arms over our heads. Chin comes to the mat. Flattening our feet. We reset. Good. Bringing our hands under our shoulders or our chest, right beside our ribs. We're going to lift up, keeping our elbows tucked into our side body. Coming into a cobra. Breathing into the lower back. Gazing forward. Two more breaths. And we release. Let's press out of that into a child's pose before our plank set. So sinking the hips back towards the heels, reaching the fingers long. Catching our breath here, resetting, celebrating the achievement to this point. Good job. So we have 4 exercises in this next set to focus on our upper body. So we'll inhale all the way up into all fours. We'll start with a plank, focusing on the triceps. We'll do some press-ups, but only about a 2-inch press-up. So bringing our hands wider on the mat, opening the fingers, finding good contact of the fingers and the knuckles, bringing our feet together, and we're in our plank. Pressing the earth away, pressing into the shoulders, keeping our neck loose, finding that nice straight line between the shoulders and our ankles. And the abdomen is about parallel to the floor. So our 2-inch press-ups are going to look about like this. We're only lowering down the top bit, not even to halfway. And we're going to burn out those triceps. Perfect. We're not coming into a down dog. We're just opening and closing, working the triceps. Two more. Good. And we're going to jump through into a reverse table, bringing the hands under our shoulders at the back, coming all the way up. Good, feeling that in the opening of the arms. Good. And we'll pulse up and down, up and down. Good. Holding at the top. Knees are stacked over the ankles, and once again, we're into our tricep press-ups, only about 2 inches. Open the elbows and close them. Open and close. Keeping the hips steady. Good. 3, 2, 1. Back into our plank with shoulder taps. And then we'll be down onto our forearms. So hands are under our chest. Feet can be a little bit wider to minimize some of the motion of our upper body. And we'll go left to right, keeping our torso parallel to the floor. Breathing. 2 more on each side. And then we lower onto our forearms, toes are coming back together, elbows are under our shoulders, and we're gonna press ourselves forward and back, keeping our body nice and straight. We're rocking on the toes, pressing back through the heels. Keeping our hips square, we're not coming into a dolphin. Toes, forward and back, forward and back. Rocking, seesaw, forward and back. Only, no dipping of the hips stay parallel to the floor. Good, and we'll bring our knees back underneath us, child's pose in between, and we'll repeat that. Bringing our heart rates down, big smiles on our faces. Now you know what's in store. And we'll start back up in our plank, so drawing ourselves up, hands come wide on the mat. And we're doing our 2-inch press-ups again. So feet come back together, torso is parallel to the floor, and we open the elbows and we come back together, about 2 inches. Neck is nice and loose. We're working the triceps and the chest. Torso is parallel. We're not moving our hips. Good more, 2 more. And we're back into our reverse table. Woo! Hopefully you're starting to feel the warmth of that. We come back up, feeling the opening across the collarbones, down through our arms. And we'll do slight pulses at the top, just with our hips and our glutes. Perfect. And then back into our tricep press up, so back, down for 2 inches and squeezing back in. Triceps 2 inches, lowering, not the hips. Awesome. Coming back into our plank, shoulder taps. Bringing the feet a little bit wider on the mat, and we're coming left to right. Trying to keep our torsos nice and stable. Slow and steady, looking good. Last one on each side. And we're down onto our forearms, bringing the toes back together. Elbows are under our shoulders, and once again, we're rocking forward and back only on the toes. The body stays nice and straight, parallel to the floor. We're not moving the hips. We're not moving the shoulders. We're rocking forward and back on the toes, and then driving through the heels. Keep those hips parallel to the floor. They're not sinking up or lifting. Forward and back. Good. And lowering the knees, child's pose. Oh, releasing out of that, resetting. Big smiles on our faces. Feels good. Grabbing a sip of water before our next round. We'll repeat those same exercises 2 more times. And then we'll shift our focus to our glutes. So once again, bringing the hands wide on the mat, toes are together, up in plank, finding our torso parallel to the floor. And we lower into our 2-inch press-ups. Keeping our torso nice and tight. We're just opening the elbows, working the tries and the chest. Dynamic tension in our quadriceps, keeping us stable. We're not lifting the hips, we're not shifting, we're on the toes. We're not coming into a down dog. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ooh, reverse table. Hands come under our shoulders. We lift up and let's pulse the hips to start. Feeling the opening in the upper arms. Slowing our breath. And then we keep our hips steady. And once again, we bend at the elbows, tricep dips, only about 2 inches. Perfect. Three, 2, 1. Back into our plank. Yay for that, shoulder taps. Widening our foot stance. Torso comes parallel to the floor. We shift left to right. Minimizing the sway as we shift our weight. Neck is loose. Feeling the abdomen light up as we shift our weight. Starting to notice those obliques. For 1 more on each side. Great, and we lower down. Forearms. Toes are together. Elbows are under our shoulders. Once again, forward and back on the toes only. Those shoulders come forward and back. Driving through the heels, hips stay parallel to the floor. The whole body is tight. We're not lifting or lowering the hips. Rocking on the toes. Lighting up the calf muscles, the toes, the fronts and the backs of the feet. Excellent. Lowering the knees down, child's pose. Enjoy this reset. Rinsing out our wrists, giving them a little ring. Rolling, making fists. You know what feels good. Good. Last time through, and then we're into our glute bridges. Inhaling, we draw ourselves up. Bringing our hands wide on the mat, opening them up. Toes come together. We come into our plank. Pressing the earth away, torso is parallel. And we've got our 2-inch press-ups. Opening the elbows and closing, working the triceps and the chest. Torso stays straight and tight. Just triceps, there you go. Opening and closing. Perfect. And into our reverse table. Well done. We're getting through it. We're building our resilience, determination, and stamina. Come on up. Feel the opening across the collarbone, down the arms. Gentle pulses of the hips. Resetting the breath. And then we'll come back into our tricep dips again. Once again, opening and closing at the elbows. Working the triceps, making sure we're working the right muscle group. For 3, 2, 1. Plank, shoulder taps, bringing the feet a little bit wider to help stabilize us, to minimize any rotation of the spine as we shift our weight left to right, moving with purpose and intention. Finding our breath and our rhythm. No competition here. We go to our speed. Remember, slow is the new strong. Two more on each side. Determination, we've got this. And then we're down into our forearm plank. Toes are together, seesawing, forward and back. Whole body is in a straight line, rocking on the toes. We're not shifting the hips down and up. Nice and tight, straight line, parallel to the floor. Forward and back. Keep those hips nice and square, they're not moving. We're not lowering our head, we're not coming into dolphin yet. For 3, for 2, last one, lowering the knees, extending the arms, child's pose, sink the hips back. Oh, yay for that. Catching our breath, rinsing out the wrists. And excited for our glute bridges next. And making our way onto our booties, onto our backs, into our hip bridge pose. Finding our way there, taking a sip of water in between as desired. And we're going to burn out our butts. So setting ourselves up, the feet are about hip width apart. We can touch our heels with our fingertips. And we're going to lift ourselves up, lifting the hips to the sky, stacking the knees over the ankles, finding that straight line. And now noticing our pose here, making sure our ribs aren't arching and reaching the sky. We're going to draw the ribs down, engaging the glutes so the hips are pressed up, and our chin is tucked into our chest. Making sure those ribs are not flying up, they're not floating. Good. And we're going to do half bridges, lowering and lifting, lowering and lifting. We're not tapping down just yet. Getting the top half, getting a good squeeze of the glutes at the top. Perfect. Three more. And holding at the top, checking our posture. Once again, knees are stacked over our ankles. The ribs aren't flaring up. And we're going to shift our weight left to right. It's like we're doing our hip dips, but this time engaging the glutes. Shifting left and right, getting a good squeeze of the glute as we shift. Three more each side. And then we'll release, stacking our left leg all the way up straight, like pressing it up. Getting a good flex of the foot, feeling all those yummy sensations running down the back of the leg. Good, and let's roll out the ankle. And we're going to come all the way back up into our hip bridge. Toes are lifted, driving the heel into the earth. And we'll pulse up and down, keeping that leg nice and straight. And we release. Good job. Switching legs. Right leg comes all the way up, straightening, flexing the foot, getting a good stretch in the back of the leg. Catching our breath in between sides. Good, roll out the ankle. And then we'll lift the left side up, lifting our toes, driving the heels into the earth, and we'll pulse. Right leg pulses up. Reaching the right toes to the sky. And we release, come all the way out of that, giving ourselves a big hug. Good, bringing our feet back to the earth, edges of the mat a little bit wider this time. And we'll do a traditional hip bridge, coming up and tapping all the way back down. Tapping up, squeezing the glutes, and lowering. Lowering and lifting. Good squeeze. Noticing how the inner thighs start to engage. Not letting our ribs flare up. Five more. 2. Good, last one. And we'll bring the feet up, the bottoms of the feet together, butterfly hip bridges. No doubt we're feeling this. We have the determination, staying with it, committing, and leaving everything on the mat here. Bringing the bottoms of the feet together. We reset, and we lift, and lower. Squeezing the glutes at the top. Moving with the rhythm of our breath to whatever speed feels best for us. Getting a good squeeze. Noticing any wobbles, working through them as we stabilize the lower half of our body. Four more. Starting to feel the glutes light up, I'm sure. Last one. And hold at the top. Hold, 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 hold. Breathing, leaving everything here. Noticing that little wobble. Bringing our awareness back to it. And we'll lower down, hugging it in. We'll roll over into all fours. Finish off our booty set with some leg extensions. Rolling over nice and gently. Slow transition, and then we'll come back to our mat for our ab set to finish off. Hands again are underneath our shoulders. And we're going to extend our left leg out, driving the toes into the earth, flexing the foot. The quadricep is engaged, and we're going to lift and lower, lift and lower. Once again, focusing on the glutes, as if the glute was doing the lifting and lowering. Maintaining a steady torso, loose neck. The rest of our body is nice and calm. Good. Keeping the leg parallel to the floor, toes are pointing down, and we're in a circle. Small little 2-inch circles, one direction. And we switch directions. Oh, feeling that light up. Toes can be curled under or flat, whatever we prefer. Good, and let's shift our weight over to the right, planting our leg. We're keeping our left hand on the earth, and we're going to lower and lift again, activating the outer edges of the glutes. Squeezing at the top. Good, and once again, let's hold and circle. Your left hand may come up on the fingertips, that's fine. We'll circle the other direction. Come on, we're working on new patterns here, breaking up old ones. Coming back to center, shifting the hips, lift left to right, and we'll rinse that out. Oh, yummy. Resetting in all fours. The right leg extends this time, toes are driving into the mat. Good flex of the right leg, quadriceps and calf. And then we'll lift and lower, tapping the toes down. Coming only parallel to the floor. Again, we're visualizing the glute muscle lifting and doing the work. Excellent. Holding at the top, and we'll make circles. Another way. Good. Bringing our right leg back to the earth. We're opening up, shifting our weight to the left. Maybe we're on our fingertips of the right arm and hand, and then lifting and lowering that right leg. Parallel and tapping down. You're likely tapping the whole inside edge of the right foot. Working the outer edge of the leg and the glutes. Nice. And then we'll hold it at the top and circle. Working through those funny patterns, creating new ones, breaking up energy, and smiling. Switch directions, circling the other way. Excellent. Back to all fours, shifting the hips left to right, rinsing that out. Yummy. Coming down into a forearm plank once again. Elbows are underneath, toes are together. Pressing the earth away into the shoulder blades, neutral neck and spine. And we're going to shift our weight left to right. Hip dips, alternating sides, pivoting on the toes. Heels comes towards the earth. Working again those obliques. Stabilizing the entire core, slow and steady, moving mindfully and full of intention, aware of what muscles we're using, aware of our breath. And we're staying committed, we're leaving our energy and determination here on the mat today. For 2 more on each side. We reset, bring the toes back together, and we're into a mountain climber. So staying here, but we're going to bring the knees in. Good, and we're mountain climbing, tucking the knees in and out. Lighting up the abdomen. 1 foot at a time, lifting, drawing the knee to the chest. We're back in to our bear, hovering the knees. We're not tapping down, back on the toes. Hovering in like a little bear. For 3, for 2, and 1. Lower the knees down, child's pose, feeling those shoulders, no doubt, a little bit more energized. We're going to finish this set with some dolphin planks because I see that you're dying to do dolphins. So, inhaling back to our forearm plank. Toes are together. We're parallel to the floor, and we're going to shift our hips up and then come back into our forearm plank, torso parallel. Shift the hips back up and plank, back and plank. Work in those shoulders. Work in the abs. Moving with our breath. Keeping our neck nice and loose. It can hang heavy between our arms as we shift our hips up. Full of determination, strength, and power. For 5, for 4, 3 more, 2, last one. Well done, yogis. Curl it in, child's pose. Last time, grabbing a sip of water, we reset and we'll finish on our backs. A little bit more dynamic movements before we rinse it out. Good. For this set, we're keeping our lower back flat into the earth. The lower back is not going to lift. So we're tucking our tailbone underneath. We can feel our lumbar pressing into the earth. And we're going to lift our legs 90 degrees. Still pressing the lumbar into the mat. We're not lifting, we're not arching the lower back, we're keeping the belly drawn down. Legs are at 90 degrees. We're going to bring our arms up alongside our ears. We're lifting our head and shoulders up. And we're going to reach our left arm and left leg. Reach, and then we reset. Right arm, right leg, reach, reset. Slow and steady. Once again, we're moving with intention and purpose. Inhale, reach. Exhale, reset. One at a time. Good reset in the middle. Big breath work. Big reaches. Notice the quadriceps engage as we extend the leg long. Three more on each side. Keeping the back pressing into the mat. Remembering that lumbar, we're not lifting it. Excellent. And release out of that. Cactus the arms, butterflying the legs. Yay for that. We reset. One more big breath. And we'll float into yogi bicycles. Once again, slow and steady. Lumbar presses into the earth. We can bring our legs back to 90, and we're going to do one side at a time, and then we reset. So this time, shoulder is going to reach for that opposite knee. Bringing it in. Oh, opening those obliques, and we reset in the center. Extend one leg, tucking the other in. Big bicycle motions here. Inhale in the center. Exhale, reaching the shoulder towards the knee. Yes, I said shoulder. Really firing up the abdomen. Slow and steady, full of purpose. Suck in the air in the middle. Inhale. And then exhale, crunch, reaching across. Reset in the center. Come on, yogis. Big determination, keeping the lumbar pressing into the mat. 2 more on each side. Shaking, we're building. And we reset, feet together, butterfly cactus. Big breaths in between, reset, sigh it out. One more dynamic movement. Good. Bring the knees back. Arms can be alongside our bodies. We're going to stack the legs over our hips. Let's take a moment to flex. Feel the energy running down the back of our legs. This is our reset point here. We're going to scissor, reset, and lift the hips about 2 inches off the earth. So left leg comes down. We reset, straight legs lifting. Right leg scissors down. We reset, lift. Left leg scissors, finding our flow. Pressing the lumbar into the mat with each scissor, and then working the abdomen to lift, keeping those legs nice and straight. Driving the toes to the sky. Remember our determination. We're leaving it on the mat. One leg at a time, scissoring. Keep the other one as anchored as possible. Let's go. Stabilize the momentum in between. Good. Let's go. One more on each side. Reaching for the sky. And we reset, butterfly cactus. Well done, yogis. Enjoy having stopped. Deep breaths in, sighing it out through the mouth. Ah. 2 more just like that. And we'll hug the knees into the chest. Option to keep the head on the mat or lifted, shifting, pulsing, rocking, whatever feels good. Rinsing it out, slowing our heart rates down, bringing our awareness back to our breath and the space around us. And let's cross our right knee over the left, letting that left foot come to the outer edge of the mat, and we'll figure 4 or eagle twist. Bringing our hands to our hips, the side of the mat or above our head. Breathing into any areas that may still be causing us a bit of discomfort. Being aware of them and noticing their transition. Maybe bringing awareness to new sensations that might be singing. Good, floating out of that. Bringing our knees back to our chest, giving them another hug. And stacking the feet over the hips. Flexing the toes, driving the heels towards the sky. Feeling all that yumminess in the back of the legs. And we'll cross the right knee over the left. Left knee over the right. Right foot comes to the outer edge of the mat. We figure four or we eagle to the left. And then we find placement for our hands, our arms. And we bring our awareness to the singing sensations and any areas of discomfort that might need our attention. Noticing the rhythm of our breath. And we'll come out of that gently, coming into our final resting pose, floating through another Upasana hug if desired. Coming into fetal or Shavasana, whichever feels good, corpse pose. And we'll take a few moments to check in with the body, running through a body scan from head to toe. Noticing how our energy and mood may have changed from the beginning of our practice. Noticing the energy and the breath. Just checking in with each part of the body all the way through, not getting stuck anywhere and not missing anything. Giving our full body equal attention. Bringing our awareness back to the breath. Not trying to change it, just noticing it. And the rising and falling sensation of our ribs and our lungs. Taking a moment to reflect on an intention we may have set at the beginning of our practice. Checking if it still resonates with us, or if perhaps we can set a new one for the days ahead. Full of compassion, love, and forgiveness for ourselves and others, without judgment, competition, or expectation in everything that we do. Taking whatever time we need here on the mat to imprint our practice on our bodies and minds. And when we're ready, we can roll up gently, giving ourselves a nice little hug and bringing our awareness back to the space around us. Taking a moment to appreciate our bodies, our determination, and our resilience, for moving mindfully and full of intention today, for being curious and confident, and for not having any expectation, competition, or judgment. We give thanks for the opportunity to practice together, for this community. And I am so impressed with your determination and enthusiasm and your continued progress. Thank you for letting me guide you here today. I wish you an amazing afternoon and evening. Namaste.